Well,
Hello,
greetings
Simon.
to Wycombe Wanderers fans wherever you are as we continue our build-up to the semi-finals of the playoffs against Fleetwood Town. We're going to look back at the club's first ever appearance in this end-of-season drama. The year, of course, was 1994, the historic first season for Wycombe in the Football League. And I'm delighted to welcome the man who was the manager of the team, of course, in those days, the one and only Martin O'Neill, and the man whose goals ensured that that season's finale ended triumphantly, Simon Garner. Martin, if I can come to you first. 26 years ago now, it seems incredible, an awful long time to jig the memory. But looking back, as I said, it was Wycombe's first season in the Football League. What were your realistic expectations?
Well, it's very interesting, Alan, because we had got promotion into the Football League, which was what we wanted to do. And the players, to their eternal credit, all wanted to turn professional. And in actual fact, if you consider that most of them are doing full-time jobs and then playing part-time for Wycombe, they were going to be giving up money to become full-time professionals with the Wanderers. And you consider that Glenn Creaster wanted to do exactly that, and he had been, I think, certainly to say he was in the autumn of his career. Let me put it that way. But and we started off. Our opening game was up at Carlisle. And I must admit, I thought that this will be too much for us. It was so difficult. And we I think we drew 2-2.
Yep.
But we came on to a game in the second half. But in the first half, we were chasing shadows. And I thought, surely there cannot be a phenomenal difference, or that phenomenal difference between the Vauxhall Conference, which we had just come out of, and the Football League. But it did seem a great chasm at the time. But we stuck to the task. We got a draw there in the game. And then we started to scramble a few victories early on as well too, and starting to really come into something. And the players getting used to from being part-time 2 nights a week to actually training full-time, it really started to make a difference. And essentially we had, obviously, Simon came in later on, but we had a lot of the players that had got us promotion into the Football League in the first place.
So let's bring Simon in at this stage. As you say, I think, good morning, Garns. You joined about halfway through that season. You'd played, obviously, at a much higher level than League 3, as it was then. Why Wycombe? Why did you choose Wycombe?
Because Martin wanted to sign me. Martin was very keen to sign me. I was out the squad at West Bromwich Albion, and I was coming to the end of my career as well, really. And I just wanted to play football. And Martin came in for me, and after meeting him, I had no hesitation but to sign for them. And like Martin said, it was a great team spirit. As the players had just all turned professional, and as Martin said, Crease was a prime example. I think he was about 34, 35. And he'd been in his job for years and years, but he had the chance, as every kid wants to be, as a professional footballer. And the players there had turned professional. They had so much hunger in them. And it was a great team spirit, and they gave everything on the pitch as well.
I don't think I'm giving away too many secrets, Garns, when I say that compared to the modern footballer, the athletes they all are. You weren't quite the same way. You only ever put your beer down to pick up a cigarette. How did Martin cope with your lifestyle?
I thought he coped with it very well. I think he used me as an example, a shining light to the rest of the squad, really.
Martin?
No, Martin.
Let's hear his version.
He understood the players, and he was very good with me. Like I said, I was coming towards the end of my career, so I didn't train every day of the week, and he was great about that, and we got on really well.
Garns, how important, or Martin rather, how important was Garns to the eventual success that season?
Well, I have to say he's been very self-effacing, because he had been a professional footballer all his life. He had been a terrific player. In terms of his lifestyle and having a cigarette, I had no problems whatsoever with that at all, because Garner had, strangely enough, kept himself in good condition. And remember, of course, I had, some years earlier, I'd left a left winger who didn't mind a little puff in the toilets at halftime, and just before the game happened to be called John Robertson, who ended up winning 2 European Cups. And so I had no problem whatsoever. It was dealing with Garns and I suppose all his eccentricities and things like this here, but he was never a problem. And also, he could easily have walked into our dressing room and being the big I am as well to him. That never happened. He was very, very popular.
Martin,
loved his company.
Sorry, I was going to say so many wonderful memories of that season before we reached the playoffs. My personal great memory was going up to Preston, who had been, I think, in the top 2 for most of the season up to then, going to Deepdale, famous club, famous ground, and beating them 3-2 with that fantastic last-minute goal by Hakan Hayrettin. That was the day I thought we arrived as a Football League club. Would you agree?
You're talking to me? Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. We travelled up there the night before. We trained on the plastic surface, and naturally, Preston had obviously had a great history behind them, and for us to go there and win that afternoon was just really fantastic. I would tend to agree with you, Alan, that was probably the night or the day that we arrived as a proper Football League team.
Simon Garner, who are the Wycombe players of that era that you most remember, that you were most impressed with?
I was impressed with the whole squad. Everybody, like you said, they just turned professional footballers, and they was hungry for it. They was hungry for success. They could have turned around and said, right, we're professionals, and got a bit carried away, and they didn't get starstruck at all. No matter who we played, they put 100% in and they gave everything. And we just worked as hard as we could. But there's some talented players there. I mean, you look at Steve Guppy, Simon Stapleton, all the players. There's some good, talented footballers in that team.
Were you surprised then how good they were for a team that has just come out of non-league football?
I was pleasantly surprised, yes. I mean, I'd looked at Wycombe's results and stuff like that before I signed and how they've been doing. But when I got there, I was just so impressed with them. They gave everything, and there was some very good technical footballers there.
A similar question to you, Martin. Obviously, you wouldn't want to single out individuals, I presume. But what were your overall impressions of the squad that you inherited at Wycombe?
Oh, it was very strong. I'd come from Grantham. I had been managing Grantham in the Beezer Home Midland Division. In fact, I'm not even sure the results were ever covered anywhere. We were that low down. But we had engendered a good team spirit among the players at Grantham. Tell you who I signed and played about 8 or 9 games for us and won all of them on his own. Gary Crosby, who ended up going to Nottingham Forest. So we had a good spirit, but when I went down, the difference in caliber between the Beezer Home Midland Division and the Vauxhall Conference was incredible. When you consider that I had at centre back, you had a choice of Matty Crosley, Glyn Creaser, and Andy Kerr, and to think that all of those 3 players were absolutely superb in the air. And I really thought I have definitely got a chance here. Davy Carroll, young Steve Guppy, players like Simon Stapleton. We had the makings of a team. I obviously was surprised at how well they hadn't been doing all that well and got knocked out of the FA Trophy by the Metropolitan Police. But you got yeah, but you got the impression that if you could just get a few things together, then this team could take off. Having said that, then when I started to, in my early days there, I had a chance to have a look at it because we were finishing off the season. Then you go to places like Stafford Rangers, who had Stan Collymore playing for them. You go then up to you play against Barnet, and Barry Fry has everyone playing for him. And then I thought, wow, wait a minute, this is a really tough league. So it took us a wee bit of while to get used to it, but the caliber of player that I inherited was absolutely terrific.
So that first season probably turned out better than any of us, I think, expected. And in the end, were you disappointed that we didn't make the automatic promotion place?
Well, it was always going to be a struggle. We were after those initial skirmishes, we were always hovering around the playoff position. Crewe were quite strong at that particular time, and then I think we went to Crewe a couple of weeks before the end of the season. They beat us. I mean, they had some good players. Neil Lennon, I think, played in that game, and their centre forward ended up playing for Norwich City. Ward, I think that they had really good footballers as well too at the time. So, but when we made the playoffs, then we have to travel to Carlisle, and the immediate thought was, well, you know, we did play them at the start of the season. This is amazing for us now to be actually playing them in the playoffs. So, no, I don't think it was a major disappointment to not go up automatically. Naturally, I'm talking to you now, some years later, after we've made it. Of course, if we hadn't made it, then I would be having a different slant in this conversation with you.
Garns, as Martin has mentioned, Wycombe's first ever Football League season started at Carlisle with a 2-2 draw. We beat them 2-0 in the reverse fixture at Adams Park. By now, you joined and became a really important member of the team. What do you remember of the first leg of that semi-final in which you scored one of the goals?
I thought going up there, I wasn't scared at all. I looked at our squad, looked at Carlisle, and I thought we had the beating of them. I went into the game confident, and scoring as well. It took the pressure off us a bit because it was 2 legs. So before the game, I felt very confident of winning the game, actually. And there wasn't many times in my career I went into a game, an important game, thinking as confident as I did about that game at Carlisle. I just thought we had the better players, and if we could get the first goal, we'd win the game.
I think Steve Thompson scored the other goal, didn't he? What a good footballer he was as well.
What a great little footballer he was. And energy-wise, he could run all day, Steve Thompson. I mean, what was he, about 5'4", I think? One of the smallest players I played with, but the heart he had, and he just kept going for 90, 95 minutes, non-stop. And he was, I can't remember how old he was now. Was he 30, early 30s? But he was always trying to improve his game as well. And he was a great little player.
You also scored in the second leg at Adams Park to qualify for Wembley. And Wembley had previously given you some disappointments in your career, hadn't it? So that must have been a great moment for you personally.
Oh, it was, definitely. I mean, when you set out as a footballer, when I was 16, set out as a footballer, all I wanted to do was, well, there's things you want to do. Play at the highest level you can. And one of your dreams is to play at Wembley. No matter what sort of game it is, you want to play at Wembley. And to go to Wembley and score a goal is, in a way, the pinnacle of your career. That's what you want to do. And I was lucky enough to do it.
I think you'd only been on the bench previously, hadn't you? When was it Blackburn?
Yeah, I was on West Brom in the playoffs.
West Brom.
And for Blackburn, I was just in the squad. I wasn't on the bench or anything. So I walked out. You walk out there, and I was 34, 35, and I felt like a school kid in a way. It takes you back to when you're younger, and it's one of your dreams. Your dream come true. And to actually score it was unbelievable.
So, Martin, looking back at the build-up to that final against Preston at Wembley, I know you were insistent at the time that the team had the best possible preparation, and you approached the board of directors and said, we want a couple of days at the Burnham Beeches Hotel, which used to be England's headquarters in those days. How important was it to get that preparation just right?
I always think that preparation before the game is absolutely essential. And again, if you get the result at the end of it, you always feel as if, well, that preparation is absolutely spot on. It doesn't necessarily work like that, but just to have the team together for a couple of days, just to get away from get away from the fact that you might have to deal with tickets. You have to have family and friends. I'd seen all of this before. As a player with Nottingham Forest. I'll never forget, Alan, that I'm playing in a League Cup final against Southampton, and I think that I have left. I've left the tickets for the family to go and collect at some place or other, wherever it may be. And the next thing you know, this is at 20 minutes to 3 o'clock, and Brian Clough comes to me and he says, "You know what? I think one of your family is outside looking for tickets. No, I've walked out. The dressing rooms at Wembley are right beside the big gates, and there's my brother peering through the little letterbox, saying, "Where have you left my tickets?" 20 minutes to 3 before a League Cup final. So those sort of things I'm thinking about, and I don't really want the players to have all of those thoughts running through their heads. Of course, there's still going to be last minute hitches and things like this here, but just to get the preparation, to get the players to feel that this is really, really important, an important game. And of course, as you say, it works out.
Everyone was fairly relaxed, I think, Simon, going into the final, weren't they?
We were relaxed, yeah, and that is credit to Martin to get us away, like you said. There is a lot going on. You've got the press who want to talk to you. You've got your family, like you said, they all want to try and get tickets from you. To get that sorted out before the game, you can get everything, you concentrate on the game, and you go into the game with the right frame of mind, and you go out and just do the best you can. And like I said, I was confident in the Carlisle game. I was still confident of beating Preston, but I thought there'd be a lot harder than what it was actually. And in the end, I thought we was easily worthy winners.
Some game, wasn't it, Martin? Wycombe 1 down, 2-1 down, came back. Wonderful 4-2 victory in the end. What are your particular fondest memories of the final?
Well, almost as Simon has said, strange enough, I believe this to be the case, and I just haven't checked it, but I think that Preston played Torquay in the other semi-final when we were playing Carlisle. And at that stage, during the course of the season, Preston were very, very strong at home because they had John Beck was their manager, and John would try everything, to get the results. That's fine. But I felt that I wanted to play Preston in the final, strange enough, rather than Torquay. I think Torquay were actually physically very strong and had played strongly against us some weeks before. So I wanted to play Preston in the final. That didn't guarantee anything. But just as Simon said, I think there was a bit of confidence about the side, that we've always felt that wide open spaces, that we would have the ability to manoeuvre the ball. We'd have the ability to get in behind them. And listen, it worked that way. However, just before kickoff, a couple of hours beforehand, or in fact, I think it was the evening before, Paul Hyde was ill, and I desperately wanted Paul to play because, no disrespect to Chuck Muzudik, Chuck was about 5'1", and he. An absolutely brilliant five-a-side player as a five-a-side goalkeeper, as was proved in the Wembley five-a-sides. But in the big goals at Wembley, I had a bit of a concern. So Paul Hyde wanted to play, and thankfully he did do, because he was really ill. And so that was a problem beforehand. During the course of the game, as you mentioned, we outplayed them and found ourselves 2-1 down at half-time, remarkably. And of course, there's a natural concern about that, because you still have to score goals to win the game. And we had done so much in the first half and found ourselves down at half-time.
Yeah, I have to make a personal confession here to Garns. I actually missed your goal. I'd gone down for a cup of tea at half-time, and who should be standing in the tea room but the great Tom Finney. And now Tom Finney was Bill Shankly's hero. Bill Shankly was my football hero. And I couldn't resist the temptation to have a conversation with him. Next thing I heard a roar, a race out of the tea room up the stairs. And I remember the steward saying, they've scored. And I said, who's they? Who scored? He says, Wycombe have scored. So I missed your goal live. I apologise for that. But you're going to talk us through it now. Tell us how good it was.
Oh, well, what I remember about it is, I think it was Dave Titterton.
Yeah.
Just knocked a long ball down the middle. It went miles in the air, if I remember right. And my first touch was really good. And then I just thought, I'm hitting this. Before anybody catches me up, I'm going to shoot. And it's funny, I've just had a picture sent through to me in the last couple of weeks by a fan of somewhere. I don't think it's a Wycombe fan, and it shows when I've just scored that goal, and just over my right-hand shoulder, there's David Moyes stood there with his head in his hands. So I forgot he played in that game, but I do it. It was a long, long ball from Dave Titterton, and it came over my shoulder. And like I said, my first touch was good, and then I thought, I'm just going to hit this. And
I think you were also involved you were also involved in one of Dave Carroll's goals.
Yep. But Dave had a great game that day. He scored 2, I think, didn't he? Dave did.
Oh, well, I was going to come to the second one, which was wonderful.
He had it. But I think the best goal was disallowed. The one I scored in, I think it was the last 2 or 3 minutes, and I was given offside. I put it in from about 40-odd yards, I'm sure. I was given offside, and I thought I was in my own half when I started the run. I do remember that bit as well.
Well, talking of a great run, Martin, what about that second goal scored by Davy Carroll? It must be one of the finest cup final goals ever scored at Wembley at any level.
Well, I must admit, I remember the goals. I had when you mentioned maybe coming on here, I had a wee quick look at the goals again. Not that I needed to refresh my memory on them. And just before I go to Dave's goal, Simon's touch for the ball that Titterton's knock, and I think David was more or less clearing lines rather than anything else. But the ball has been in the air for a long, long time. With the control, Simon's pulled down and pulled the ball down and then put it in with his left foot. Garner was a very, very, very clever player. He was not only that, as my old man, or as my old boss used to say, Brian Clough, most difficult thing in the game, son, is scoring goals. And Garner could score because he had a coolness about himself in front of goal. And I have watched, just in the lockdown, I've watched a lot of Bundesliga football, and I've watched a lot of Serie A football as well too. And there are teams mid-division in those things could do with a 25-year-old Simon Garner, because they are struggling in front of goal. A lot of these teams that are playing in the big leagues. But anyway, that's enough. I wish Garner wasn't here to be listening to this here, but brilliant. And in terms of Davy Carroll's goal, well, it was absolutely stupendous. He has turned, you think that Davy wouldn't even have the energy to do that, but he could get up and down like Stevie Guppy could. Those two boys were absolutely fantastic for us. And Davy's goal, where he's twisted and turned, he's come from right-hand side across the goal again. Then suddenly he's onto his left foot, and I knew he's never going to try and hit this with his left foot. But Preston players didn't know that, and suddenly he turns back again onto his right and just lashes this thing in off the post into the net. But I remember, I did refresh my memory on them, but I didn't need to, because I remember those goals as clearly as if they were yesterday.
And Garns, I'm sure you remember the coach ride back from Wembley to Adams Park and the celebrations that followed.
No. No, I think it's funny by that. I remember, the thing I do remember about it was the press conference after. I think me and Martin had to go into the press conference, and I walked in. I do remember walking in with a fag on and a can of beer in my hand for the press conference. Martin didn't even tell me to put
That's
it
hard
down.
to believe.
It was, because like Martin said, John Beck was the manager there at Preston, and I'd heard rumours before I went to Wycombe that he was going to try and sign me at Preston. But obviously, from his time at Cambridge, he had a bit of a reputation for different way of playing football, let's put it like that. His long ball game and all that, which he wanted to do. But I was just glad we beat them. And as soon as we were doing the press conference, he walked in. And I made some sarcastic remark about the way that John Beck played football, and I don't think that went down too well.
Well, another player, of course, in the Preston side that day was a promising young winger called Gareth Ainsworth, just to bring the whole thing full circle. And you, because he was a Blackburn fan, were his biggest hero.
I was one of, yeah. He always mentions that to me. I mean, but looking at Gareth now, what a great job he's doing at Wycombe Wanderers. And he reminds me a bit of Martin. He's got the enthusiasm. Martin used to have great enthusiasm. And you see that, you have that in Gareth. I mean, he's never still on the touchline. He's kicking nearly every ball. And Wycombe's done very well, I think, to hold on to Gareth. And hopefully he can get them up and keep hold of him still.
Martin, obviously you follow Wycombe's results from afar now. What have you made of their achievements, if I can use that word, because they haven't actually achieved anything yet, but what have you made of their performances this season?
Well, I just reiterate, or will reiterate exactly what Simon has said. Young man has done fantastically well in all his time there at the football club, and to think that Wycombe now, who would not have the resources that other teams would have at their disposal, even in those leagues, they are marching now into the playoffs here to get into the championship. That is just absolutely fantastic, and I've got the utmost regard for him. I think he knows that. Every single time I'm texting him, I'm always texting him to say, well done. It's very, very seldom, tough luck there or whatever the case may be. So it's a remarkable achievement. If they could make it, is just wonderful. And again, I would say exactly this, as the way Simon has said it, the young man is destined for some great things in management, and which I think he's already achieved at Wycombe.
I'm sure everyone watching will want to know what you're up to these days. Martin, between jobs at the moment, how are things?
Oh, really fine. It's nice to see Simon. He's looking as young as he ever did, and he never looked young. And no, it is really good. I just again to think that we were able to sign him. He could easily have said no to us and stayed at West Brom, but he didn't. He wanted to play, and he made it for us, because we needed a bit of experience. We needed not just experience. You can get experience from somebody who's 63 at the end of the day. It won't make a great deal of difference. But he made an enormous difference to our team for those last few months of the season. An enormous difference, not only in the dressing room, but in every aspect and on the field of play. So from that viewpoint, I just wanted to pass that final message on. For myself, great days. Loved those days at Wycombe. Of course, the making of you at the end of it all. But I'm delighted to do this. I wish the club all the very, very best. I think they can manage it. It won't be easy, and not that they need me to say that. And of course, your own time there, Alan, which you helped me get the job. I remember this. We met at Norwich, and I didn't know the job was available at the time. I think that that was a Sunday. You were watching Liverpool. I think were you just there watching the game? Yeah. Liverpool and Norwich. And you said to me, had you applied for the job? I said I hadn't known it was available, because I had failed the interview a couple of years earlier, and I think that who was it had turned it down on the Monday?
It was Kenny Swain.
What?
Kenny Swain.
Absolutely, Kenny had turned it down to stay on it at Crewe Alexander, right. And then Ivor gave me a call on the Monday evening and said, "Would you come down for an interview on the Tuesday?" And I get it. So if I'd not met you that Sunday in that particular time, then I would never have been manager of Wycombe Wanderers.
Okay, I hope the check's in the post then. Garns, you still live in the area, of course. Do you ever get up to see Wycombe play?
Not as much as I'd like to do. I mean, I'm a bit superstitious still in a way, and the times I've been down to Wycombe, they haven't got a result, so I try and keep away. But I do like to go down when I can do, but it's not that often.
Okay, guys. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure seeing you both again. Thank you so much for taking time to reminisce like this, and let's hope that this season turns out like 1994 with success. Come on, you Blues. Thanks again, guys.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.